I'm here now. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Outstanding. So this is what the hot seat feels like.
Are you sweating yet?
I don't know. The lights are pretty warm in here.
All right, we don't have a lot of time, so we'll skip the intro. Go right
Good.
into the tough questions. All right, what do we got here? All right, Adam, you said Jesse Benton cheated on his girlfriend at the time with his current wife and Ron Paul's granddaughter. After you did this, was there any regret? Did you feel like you took it too far?
No. And there are certain things about Jesse Benton's personal life that I have not revealed that I could use if all I wanted to do was make him look bad. But there are certain elements of his past that are relevant to what he's doing now, his relationship with Ron Paul, and thus the movement as a whole. And for those things, in terms of the significance of the relationship with his wife, I needed to reveal certain things that in other circumstances would be questionable, if not inappropriate. So I can understand the charge. But given the implications of those things that I revealed and what they say about Jesse Benton, I feel that I had to, and it was appropriate in calling him out.
Where do you get this information from, Adam? By the way, it's Tracy Diaz. Hello.
Hi. Well, for that in particular, it was from someone who wishes to remain anonymous, who was on the campaign in 2007 and 2008.
All right.
And I mean, I have other sources. Obviously, one of them came forward with really everything she had to say. I shouldn't say everything she had to say, but for those of you who haven't seen it, my interview with Penny Freeman from last Friday has been making the rounds about the various betrayals of Ron Paul, and I have similar sources, but she's been very helpful in me developing my understanding of what's been going on with the campaign and the relationship with Jesse Benton and the family.
Did she fear any repercussions from that? I mean, was she a little bit like scared to come forward and do that on your show?
Well, I don't want to speak on her behalf, but there was definitely it definitely wasn't a light decision for her. It was something that she took very seriously and gave a lot of consideration to. And I think, as with many of us, with the problems that we've seen with Jesse Benton especially, but with others in the campaign, with John Tate, with I mean not so much with Doug Weed, but with Nick Spanos working the phone banks. There have been a lot of things that people have sat on, that people have not really revealed because they were afraid that it would hurt Ron's chances or would make Ron look bad. And a lot of people are regretting that now about not being more open about it. But this was part of the environment that Benton created. And you can ask Tom Woods about that when he comes on next, about how he got thrown under the Ron Paul bus and what comments led to that from him, which were on his blog, very respectful but constructively critical comments about how the campaign was being run and about Jesse Benton. And next thing you know, he went from being the prime speaker at the Campaign for Liberty regional conferences to completely cut off.
All right. You've been pretty, I guess, tough on Rand for his endorsement of Romney, right?
Well, I wouldn't say, honestly, I really haven't been that tough on Rand himself because I don't think it's that big a deal. And it's not a surprise that Rand endorsed Romney. It's offensive, as it is when anybody endorses Romney. And there is a different element of a certain betrayal of the movement. But really, I can't even call it a betrayal on Rand's part because, he's always been upfront about this. People can feel duped when he sort of played along and made people think that he was just like his father. But he's always been different. He's been pretty clear about from the beginning that he's not a libertarian. He's a conservative. And there's nothing like in and of itself wrong with that. So that he endorsed Romney, it's offensive, but I don't really, I can't really fault Rand for that because he's not committed to the same principles that we as libertarians are.
So would you say he then didn't compromise because he's always been straightforward?
I think he's always been a compromiser. He's always been a statist, and that's the fundamental difference between him and his father. And it doesn't matter how small a government you're advocating for, if you're not consistent in your principles and moving towards a stateless society, a truly free, voluntary society, as his father is, then you're already a compromiser. You're already willing to say, for some form of utilitarianism, well, a little bit of violence by the government here or there is okay. And, Rand voted for sanctions against Iran. That's an act of war. And in this case, an unprovoked one. So and I don't think it's a compromise. It's just part of his MO. It's what he does. It's part of being a statist. It's part of being a utilitarian. You could say it's a compromise because Rand is still distinctly different from Mitt Romney. So in that sense, yeah, it's kind of a big move, a big compromise, a big sellout. But if it's really compromising his principles, I don't know. I don't know if I'd go that far because it's hard to say. I don't really share Rand's principles.
Well, what about the argument, though, that he's compromising so that in the long run it helps the liberty movement? And I ask this because some would say that you compromise by having a show on a state-run network. So
sure.
your argument to that is, well, yeah, it was a state-run network, but I was spreading the message of liberty. Can't that same argument be applied to what Rand's doing?
Well, it's kind of laughable in that when you put it that way, because Rand isn't spreading the message of liberty. He doesn't speak from the philosophy as his father does, never has, and I don't think ever will. I mean, I'd be welcoming him with open arms if he decided to change his tune. But taking money, accepting money from government, accepting benefits, in an industry that is completely overrun by government intervention. Nobody leveled the charge at Judge Napolitano for taking a job with Fox, which is owned by an Aussie and a Saudi, who are obviously very pro-government and in bed with so many corrupt politicians. So if anything, doing it up front, saying that, yes, this is the Russian propaganda machine, and at this point our interests intersect, I don't think that's a compromise. I drive on government roads, and if you want to say that that's a compromise of libertarian principles, then so is taking a show at RT. And if you want to take that stance and you want to live by those principles, I have the utmost respect for you. And if you want to call me a pragmatist compromiser for being in that category of libertarians that actually use government roads, then I am guilty as charged.
So government roads and RT news, my thought here is that just interesting to watch how RT has changed their tune as all this stuff has come out, kind of like they're working in tandem with
Hold on, I can barely hear you. It sounds like you're very far away from the mic, and I'm getting a big echo.
Yeah, I got complaints because I was too loud. So what I'm saying is it's pretty interesting that RT has changed their tune as far as the way they're kind of embracing or not embracing Ron Paul as a shot on the convention floor any longer, almost like they're working in tandem with the government to put out what people want to, or what people don't necessarily want to see, but they want them to hear. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, it's sponsored by the Russian government. These are the people that are trying to start a humanitarian war in Syria so that both the superpowers can go at it and further exploit the citizens of the United States and Russia for the benefits of their governments. I'm not surprised at all. I haven't been following RT that closely, but I understand, why they would support someone like me. But I did kind of figure that it was only a matter of time before someone in the Russian government figured out what anarcho-capitalism was and was like, yeah, you can't be airing this stuff. So, I can't speculate a whole lot further as to the intentions of the Russian government with their particular propaganda tool that they have with RT, but it does make sense given those broader incentives of government.
Adam, occasionally you'll get high on your show. Some people in the movement, that offends them. They don't like it. They say that when you're trying to spread the message of liberty and somebody happens to see your show, maybe they would have been more open to it, but then they're like, oh my God, you're high. What do you say to people that make that argument?
They don't have to watch my show. That's fine. I'm spreading the message to people who aren't bothered by certain drug use. Most people define what drug use they're bothered by based on what the government says is okay. If I was taking shots of Jack on my show, they wouldn't say anything. These aren't people that complain about people that drink on in public or anything like that. But if it's marijuana, then it's going to look bad. But you know what? There was a study just released by the CDC that shows there are more teens today who smoke marijuana than cigarettes. And alcohol use is on the decline, marijuana use is on the rise, because Americans' youth are realizing that marijuana is a freedom-inducing substance. Not only does it make you realize that the government is full of crap, but that the drugs that are approved by the government aren't good for you. Surprise, surprise. And that marijuana is really a very healthy alternative to alcohol as a recreational and social drug of choice. And I think that people are starting to realize that, and really the future is not with alcohol in terms of what is going to be the primary social drug in America. It's going to be marijuana.
All right, let's just apply that same theory of what you do on your show sometimes might turn people off with the whole cursing thing. You're about to go to Massachusetts, I think, right, and protest their newest law.
Because being offended is fucking bullshit. And I think the idea of taking offense to words, of pretending that you're having an emotional reaction to things that people are saying, is a way of emotionally manipulating people into controlling their language. And that's bullshit. And I think people who believe in liberty understand that and are able to get past that. And people who still watch Adam versus the Man, despite my cussing, are grown-ups and not children who feel that they need to be sheltered from dirty words. But yes, we're hosting a free fucking speech demonstration in Middleborough, Massachusetts, where they've decided to make it a citable offense for a $20 fine to use foul language in public. So we are going to be challenging that. And in terms of, spreading the message, there are times when you want to have as broad an appeal as possible, and there are times you want to use the full, colorful range of language afforded by English. And I usually choose to do that, having been in the Marines and learned how to cuss like a sailor. I take full advantage of the words that are available to me in expressing myself. And I think that's more important than giving into the emotional bullshit of people that say, ooh, that's offensive, I can't listen to you.
All right, last question, because we're running over and Tom's coming up. Who would you like to see step up and take a leading role of the liberty movement after Ron Paul retires? Are you interested in filling that role?
Am I interested in filling that? I mean, to what extent I can serve the message by being an effective deliverer of it, by my own merit, I'm always doing my best to, I would never call it provide leadership, but provide value in media production. And if I can do that, to whatever extent that I can, I'd be deeply honored. Judge Napolitano was great. I wish that he had a venue that was more full-time, like, when he had his own show, rather than what he's doing now as a commentator. I wish he would go my route. He's got a much larger fan base and would probably be much more successful. And at least with middle America, he's got a broader appeal than I do. So I'd really like to see him step up in his own media production and break away from Fox entirely. But that's kind of a media-oriented perspective. In terms of politics, if you want to say that that's leadership in the movement, although we're not really a political movement as much as I think we are an anti-political movement, I had great hopes for Justin Amash until recently. Seeing his vote on Israel foreign aid was really disappointing. But there are a lot of other people that can step up. There are plenty of people, but more importantly, this movement is about you. This movement is about everybody who believes in this message stepping up and being a leader for themselves. And how that's manifest in the broader political scene, in the broader media scene, in the broader American dialogue isn't nearly as important as people who believe in this message, fully embracing it, living by it, spreading it to those around them however they can. I would be honored if you choose to use my videos or podcasts to help spread the message, but really it's not important. That's just a mechanism. It's about stepping up and being a leader for yourself, as it always has been. It's the only way this movement will succeed. And it's the way that it will succeed because we are a leaderless resistance. We are a movement full of people capable of leading, stepping up, and making decisions for themselves.
You're gonna have to get going in 1 second, Adam, but I seem to remember a couple, like maybe a month ago when we did the get it off your chest and tell me what's next, you saying you had some kind of presidential aspirations. I don't know, that's just off the top of my head. It was a very long evening.
Yes, I don't know if you want to call them aspirations, but I've been kind of toying with the idea of starting a campaign this November for me to run for president in 2020 on the platform of dissolving the federal government entirely. But it will be an ideas-driven campaign. It will be serious enough that should we by 2020 develop consensus nationally that we would be better off as a nation without the federal government, I will be ready to step up and have a full plan to execute. But it's not about me. And if someone else wanted to take up that platform or be a more effective messenger for it, as I would have to say as part of this, I would be eager to drop out and endorse someone else. But I really think that is a central idea. The way that the Ron Paul presidency, a constitutionalist presidency, united people and gave people a way to reach out. I think creating a campaign around the idea of dissolving the federal government entirely in a peaceful, orderly manner is something that would be an incredible tool for liberty activists to be able to reach out to fellow Americans and to start talking about the message and waking people up to the reality of the nature of government. So I'm still toying with that one. We'll see if anything ever comes of it. But it's certainly a significant task that we'd have to complete first to come up with a plausible plan for dissolving the federal government. And obviously it can be done, but we have to have a proposal for how. And if people want to get behind that plan and that platform and help develop it, I'd be happy to put my face on it for a while if I have to and shepherd the idea and be an advocate for it. But for me, it's just part of the broader journey that I'm on and the mission that I've made for myself of doing everything that I can to spread the message.
Adam, thanks for coming on. If anybody wants to check out Adam, it's adamversustheman.com. Thank you very much, Adam.
My pleasure. Great hot seat questions.
Hello, Mr. Woods.
Hey, everybody. Wait, I guess this hand is more visible.
Thanks for coming on.
Okay, can you guys hear me all right?
You're good.
Okay.
Good. All right, just to start off, why did you step down from the board at Revolution PAC?
So it is Liberty Hot Seat. It's not Liberty Comfortable Seat, after all. Well, I basically had always said to myself that after Super Tuesday, then we would know really one way or the other where things were likely to go and whether we could really play much of a role at that point. But secondly, I was getting frustrated because I felt like I just couldn't contribute enough to it. And because I was the honorary chairman, sort of everything was sort of done kind of in my name, but yet I could accept neither the credit nor the blame, really. And so I just felt like, because it was at a time when I was having, I don't know, I just had a lot of things going on in my life, and I was extremely busy. And I just felt like if I can't pour myself into this, and yet it's got my name emblazoned on it, then really the people who are actually doing the work should be getting the credit. I mean, Gary Franchi just, he made that thing go just because he's the kind of guy, he could power 18 light bulbs, at once. And he deserved the credit, really. But yeah, that was basically it. I mean, as I basically stepped down just after Super Tuesday, because that basically what I'd said at the beginning. I'll stick around till Super Tuesday. Oh, hang on a sec. Shh. Yeah, they don't know I'm doing this. I'm at home and I'm sitting at the family desktop instead of at my laptop. So that was basically had always been my plan. All right, give me another. Give me a tougher one than that. Do your worst.
Oh boy, don't invite that, Tom.
Yeah, I know. It's like George Bush saying, "Bring it on." Ugh.
All right. Some say you do a great job of talking the talk, but that you should walk the walk and help save this country by running for office. Why won't you run?
Okay. Well, okay, shh, please. Well, I mean, I'm not sure that running for office is walking the walk. I mean, I'm not sure that is the only approach that somebody can take. I think there are other things people can do, right? I mean, my Liberty Classroom is one thing. Just writing, talking, educating is another thing. We do need people to do those things. But also, I think that the main reason I wouldn't do it, I mean, for one thing, I really don't want to. But if I felt like my doing it would help, then maybe I would, even though, just because, in other words, just because I don't want to doesn't necessarily mean that I wouldn't. But the real reason is I would be savaged. You know, we've seen people get attacked for things that they've written or whatever. I would be so, because I've not like I've written things that are indefensible or outrageous. If I have a few minutes, I can explain and account for everything. But you don't always have those few minutes, and people have this first impression, and it's one sentence you wrote in one book 10 years ago or something. You know, I feel like they would say he's a neo-Confederate slavery defender. This is all absurd, of course, but that's what they specialize in. The Southern Poverty Law Center doesn't like him, so he must be a dangerous person. And I feel like I would have to. I mean, I think about people donating to my campaign, and I don't think of super duper wealthy people. I think of people who are sacrificing to send me money, and I can't, in good conscience, ask them for money when 80% of that money is going to defend me against stupid charges instead of actually getting the message out there. So I'm afraid that I have already stepped in enough stuff that would just come back to really hurt me, and I think it would hurt the whole movement. I mean, I just think I would be attacked so badly that it would not be productive for me to be doing it.
You have to worry a little bit about your family going through that as well, no?
Well, that too. I mean, up to now, you know, if the New York Times attacks me or something, well, my kids are too young to understand the significance of that. But then they'll pass through a phase before they become adults and realize, well, it's a privilege to be attacked by the New York Times. They will get to that age where that's going to be really hurtful for them, and especially when they hear some of the things that might be said about me. But even then, I mean, I'm very, very close to my children. I could guide them through that and explain that. To me, the real strain on the family wouldn't be all the abuse I would take. It would be the amount of hours I would have to pour into something like this. If I'm going to do this, I would do it fully. I wouldn't just do it as a part-time job. And that would mean long, long, long hours away from them.
All right, we asked this with Adam too. When Ron Paul retires, who would you like to see possibly fill his role? Obviously, nobody can do what Ron Paul did, fill his shoes, but who would you like to see step up as in a leadership position, if anyone?
Okay, well, I mean, do you have in mind specifically a political person?
Could be that, whoever you would like to see step up.
I really don't know. I mean, I'm not super duper impressed with a whole lot of the politicians out there right now, even the ones who are supposed to be on our side of things. So I would kind of hope it's somebody we haven't heard of yet. I mean, think about how young the people. I mean, it's a cliche that Ron Paul really attracts the young people, but that's true. Because that's true, a lot of the people he attracted in 2008 are still not even old enough to run for U.S. House. You have to be 25 years old. Some of them still aren't even that. So there could be some really well-spoken hotshot who comes along. You know, part of me is sympathetic to the Ernie Hancock view that we don't need a leader and, you know, we just go and do your own thing. And of course that's right. I mean, to an extent, I perfectly well agree with that. Everybody has a specialty and everybody has some particular talent to bring to the table, and I'm all for that. But the fact is that we didn't all know about each other until a Ron Paul came around, and then that became the conduit through which we all discovered each other. So I don't think we should disparage the idea of leaders altogether, not because we need to be led and we're little sheep and we need somebody to bark out orders at us, but just simply that there could be one thing, one person, one whatever, that we can all look to just as a way of knowing about each other. But I'm afraid that right now I just don't know who that person is. I guess I would just challenge everybody. Think about what you as an individual, you right now, you the person out there who thinks I'm just an ordinary member of the Liberty Movement or something. Well, think about how you can step it up. You know, what are other things that you can do? How can you be more efficient with your time? How can you squeeze out 20 more minutes out of your day so you can read more, you can become more effective, you can start a blog? I think if all of us individually started doing more, that would be a great contribution to see. Like for example, let me say, I mean, like starting a blog. Starting a blog helps you to become a better writer, It helps you to become a better thinker. You think things through logically. And it can be the means through which your education in liberty literature comes about. Because if you can't think of anything to blog, then you read. There's plenty of classic material we all need to have under our belts, and you write about what you're reading. And that will help other people. I mean, we can all help each other. This is a wonderful synergistic thing. So maybe my sort of Time Man of the Year is not an individual. It's like all of us, basically. Boy, that is I think that is the single sappiest thing I have ever said, right there.
I want to ask you a question. I know back when Ron Paul first started campaigning, you put out sort of like a guide to how he could debate better, and it doesn't seem like he followed any of your instructions. Is it frustrating when you're trying to help and you're getting opposition?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are two things to say about that. One is that, you know, Ron Paul is Ron Paul, and he has his own style, and you know, that's just not going to change. And you know, and I respect that. I respect that. I mean, if some you know, hotshot kid were making YouTubes telling me what to do, maybe I might be a little resistant too. But the other thing is, I mean, of course, I could have played a more formal role in all this, and you know, I think I had some valuable counsel to share, but that just wasn't in the cards. You know, because of personalities or whatever, that wasn't to be. And so, even if I had been able to play a more formal role in all this, maybe I still wouldn't have been able to do anything that might have changed things. But yet, I wouldn't have had this feeling that I have now that, you know, maybe there were contributions I could have made that could have helped a little bit. Like, I mean, from the start, I mean, apart from debate advice, from the start I said, you can't run this campaign assuming that foreign policy will just go away. And now Ron himself never ran the campaign that way. Every time he gave a speech, he always brought it back to foreign policy. But the official campaign, they never did an ad touching on foreign policy. They did one that very, very, very remotely touched on it. I was saying that you got to have a traveling show. You got to get foreign policy experts who are good speakers, and there are such people, and you have them go out on the speaking circuit and get a debate going. In fact, why not even host debates? Why not be like the first presidential campaign ever that actually cares about spreading knowledge? Host debates, have debates with the neocons, and get Ron Paul's positions out there and explain them. Maybe, you know, with different people explaining them. Maybe different people will help to have things click with some neocon voters. But one thing that won't work is just hoping it'll go away. And I think all the way up through into Iowa and beyond, we kept constantly seeing people who would say, I love Ron Paul except for his foreign policy. Why wasn't that done? Like, that was an easy thing. That is so easy. You don't need Tom Woods. You don't need a particular individual to recommend that. And yet, I don't get why that wasn't done.
Just so everybody in the chat room knows, after this, Tom's going to be taking your questions live. So just hang in there for those who are getting frustrated.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I just let me just interrupt, because I told everybody, you know, come on over here and I'll take your questions. That's coming up in just a second, but I'm going to let I want these people to grill me. I think maybe you have one more you want to throw my way.
Yes. What do you think Ron Paul should do with his leftover campaign cash?
What should he do with the dough? Now, actually, I have no idea. Do you know actually what the figure is, or is it a publicly known figure? Does anybody know how much money there is?
I checked recently. It was 2.5 million, I believe, in positive revenue left over.
Okay. Well, that's not a insubstantial sum, right? Well, I mean, you know, for what my advice is worth, I would, I don't know, I would do one of two things. I would pour it into Campaign for Liberty if it were totally revamped. If the mission statement were clear and if we had a new leadership in it, then I would pour it into that. But I wouldn't pour it into it if they're going to spend the money on banner ads for auditing the Fed. I mean, this is, you know, I mean, you got to be better stewards of people's money. I mean, this is, again, people are going without meals to send this money in. You cannot fritter away the dough. We got to be super careful. It's got to be treated the way Ron Paul treats money in his own congressional budget. Or secondarily, I would say, open up a different organization. Maybe you know, the Ron Paul Center for International Relations. the Ron Paul Center for Peace Studies, something like that, that gets non-intervention as an area of study. I mean, the Federal Reserve, we do have the Mises Institute, we have a lot of scholars on that, but we don't have as many international relations people. And that's where we really, I mean, to me, the war issue is always the most critical moral issue. Maybe he could do something like that, but it should be primarily educational. You know, he already has a PAC for election stuff, so that's already in place. So maybe something like that. But this is just off the top of my head. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and think that was a terrible idea.
Tom, you know that he sent out an email today asking people to donate to Campaign for Liberty to get his Audit the Fed bill passed. I thought that was outrageous.
Oh, I didn't. I mean, maybe that was I didn't get that email, or maybe it's in my spam folder or something. But I didn't get that.
Outrageous.
Okay, anything else?
All right, we'll let you off the hook. Just so everybody knows, coming up at 10, we have also a new show. It's the Ron Paul girl. She does a radio show. I believe it's Paul Bot Radio, I think, or Ron Paul Radio, and she's going to be doing it here now. So that comes up at 10, and Tom Wiz is going to be taking your questions for the next half hour. So go ahead, Tom. Thanks for doing this.
Okay, yeah, no problem. All right, so I'm going to try and fetch these questions out of the very quickly moving stream. Is that how this works? Oh my gosh. Okay, look, guys. Look, this is hard to do. The questions are moving too fast. Okay. Let me first deal with the question that a lot of people are asking, because people want to know, because I made this video the other day, and then today people click on it, and it's now private, and, you know, what happened? Did the goons visit my house, or, like, what happened? I'll just say, I mean, you know, I'm never anything other than 100% forthcoming with you guys. Like, I mean, there's one thing you can say about me is I've always been cards on the table, and I've never obfuscated ever. In this case, I hate to have to say this, but you got to just trust me. That's all I can say. You got to just trust me on this. I'll never ask you to do this again. But you got to just trust me. I thought about it, and I thought that there was a sense in which the message of that video could be taken the wrong way, even though I don't think most people did take it the wrong way. Most people liked the video. But in light of further reflection and further information that I have, I think it's sending the wrong, because I believe that there is, oh, sorry, my screensaver just came on. Sorry, this is a new computer. I have it coming on too soon. I think there is zero chance that there'll be a Ron Paul Romney endorsement. Absolutely zero. I think we owe the man that much confidence after all that he's done for us. We owe him that. And I think that's, I mean, if there is a Ron Paul endorsement of Romney, I will come back on here and eat some inedible object. That's how certain I am that it is not going to happen. So I don't think there really is the need for it. So anyway, I know that's not a complete explanation, but that's the best I can do for you now, and I hope that satisfies you, but there ain't nothing you got to worry about. Okay.